Chapter 11. Let me get that. AJ reached out for the carry-on bag Lisa had on her shoulder as they followed Jeff to the line in the airport. I can get it, she said, but his hand stayed on the strap. Let him have it, Eve said from Lisa's side. It'll make him feel important. Yeah, AJ agreed with a grin. Otherwise, what's the use of having me around? For a second, Lisa held the bag, and then she relinquished it to his care. He took it, shouldered it, and looked around the airport as the three of them joined their leader. I wonder where Gabe and Ash are, Jeff said, looking at his watch through the sunglasses he hadn't had enough hands to take off. Besides the sunglasses, he looked like a pack animal. They were supposed to be here. They'll be here. Lisa shifted her weight awkwardly. Gabe probably lost his goggles or something. Or something, Eve said with a laugh. Jeff looked at his watch again as the black leather of his jacket slipped over the white button-down shirt. Well, I hope they get here soon. They'll be here, Lisa assured him as she attempted to reach down to readjust her shoe. These shoes are killing me. Why'd you wear them then? Eve asked. Because my boots don't fit anymore. Nothing fits anymore. Just think, 5 more weeks and you'll be able to wear whatever you want, Eve said. Could we make those 5 weeks go a little faster? Lisa asked as they all inched forward in the line. Let's not, Jeff said seriously. A little nervous, are we? AJ asked Jeff as he tilted his head playfully under the backward black New York Yankees hat he wore. Nervous? I wouldn't say that, Jeff said. Petrified would be much closer. Eve laughed. Now's not a good time to decide that. Who decided? Jeff asked, moving 2 suitcases forward and kicking at the other one. She said, I'm pregnant, and I passed out. Both AJ and Eve laughed, but Lisa shook her head seriously. He's not kidding. Hey, guys, a voice called from behind them, and all 4 gazes turned to it. Well, we were beginning to think you all chickened out on us, Jeff said, extending his hand to Gabe. However, Gabe's normally quick comeback didn't come. Bad news, Gabe said, and Eve noticed that Ashley wasn't with him. Where's Ash? Lisa asked. Her mom had a heart attack last night, Gabe said. It was slight, but Ash is with her right now. Oh no, Lisa said. Is she all right? Jeff asked. They think she's going to be fine, but they're going to do a few tests today to find out what went wrong. Gabe's face fell even further. So, I guess that means we're out. Crud, Jeff said, and he sighed, letting a carry-on slide off his shoulder. Well, I guess that means the trip's off. No, hey, Gabe held up a hand. You guys go. I brought you the key and some directions. We can't go without you guys, Lisa said. Ashley insisted, Gabe said. She said to go and ski a run for her. Lisa looked at Jeff, who looked back at her with concern and uncertainty. Neither Eve nor AJ said a word. This decision wasn't up to them, and they knew it. It'll be the last time you guys get to go without bottles and diapers and pacifiers for who knows how long, Gabe coaxed. Call it our early baby present. I don't know, Lisa said. It doesn't seem right to go without you. Ashley will be crushed if you don't, Gabe said, pulling the stuff out of his pocket. You've got your tickets. The place is yours until next weekend if you decide you don't want to come back. He held the items and smiled at Jeff. Except you, mister. You better be on that truck Tuesday morning, or you'll be on KP duty for a month. Gabe put the stuff in Jeff's hands. Have fun, and ski a couple runs for us. Tell Ashley we'll be praying for her and her mom, Eve said. Gabe smiled at her. I will. Have a safe flight. The 4 of them waved as he turned back for the door. I hope Ashley's okay, Lisa said as the ticket clerk called them forward. Me too, Eve agreed as Jeff stepped up to the counter. New Mexico, AJ said, settling into his seat next to Eve and across the aisle from Jeff and Lisa. I've never been to New Mexico. Mexico, yes. New Mexico, no. You've been to Mexico? Eve asked, surprised by every single thing she learned about him. Juarez, he said, once for like half an hour. We went to El Paso for this school trip. It was fun until 2 of the guys got busted for trying to smuggle alcohol back across. 2 guys, huh? And one of them's name wasn't Knight, was it? He slid another 2 inches down in the seat. Nope, I was a good boy. All I wanted was a knife that had a hollowed-out handle. A hollowed-out handle? What good does that do? Eve asked skeptically. You put the alcohol in the handle, and you put the knife in your pocket, Jeff said from across the aisle. 2 birds with 1 stone. Lisa jabbed Jeff. And how would you know that? People talk. I listen, he said, shrugging innocently. Eve's eyes widened in disbelief. And you wanted one? AJ shrugged. I was 16. You want a lot of dumb things when you're 16. So, did you get it? No, the chaperone guy wouldn't let me. Huh, smart chaperone, Eve said. Tell me about it. My mom would have flipped out. And the fact that you were going to wig your mother out never crossed your mind while you were thinking about purchasing this double-edged sword? I just thought it looked cool. Well, remind me what cool means to you the next time we're shopping. AJ smiled at her as the plane taxied to the runway. I'll be sure to do that. What do you think? 2 cars or 1? Jeff asked AJ when they were standing in line for the rental counter. The women had decided to find a nice place to sit down and guard the luggage. I don't know. How are we planning on doing this anyway? AJ asked. Well, I had thought we'd go skiing one day and the girls would go the next, but that's not going to work. And I don't want to leave Lisa at the cabin without a vehicle. AJ shrugged. Then I guess we take 2. Okay, 2 it is. Eve wasn't exactly sure how the car thing had happened, but suddenly she was sitting in the passenger seat of a Dodge Ram pickup, watching AJ, who was sitting next to her, pull out of the Albuquerque airport as he followed Jeff in a little blue Camry. I just love the mountains, Eve said as she put her head back on the headrest and gazed out at the white, snow-capped mountains in the distance. It's all so fresh and clean and new up here. His glance over was only that. So you've been skiing then? Oh, yeah. We went on spring break right after Dustin and I got together. He spent the whole day pulling me out of the snow. I don't think I even got off the lift without falling that day. She shook her head. It was awful. But then the next day, I stopped being like, ah, every time the skis started sliding. I did better that day. We went a couple times since then. Well, at least you had someone to help you. I had 6 guys going, Hey, AJ, there's a jump. Come on, man, go for it. Terror jumped to Eve's heart. A jump? It was really this little incline out of the snow, but it was enough to get you airborne. Her eyebrows reached for the ceiling as her head came off the headrest, and her gaze drilled into him. You didn't jump it, did you? Sure I did, he said with a shrug. I had to. They were all sitting there watching me. Besides, they dared me to, and I couldn't go back on a dare. She laughed and let her head settle again. On your first day you were ski jumping? It was strange how wonderful it was to simply be able to sit and look at him. Well, I wouldn't exactly call it ski jumping. It was more like ski crashing. But hey, I tried it. You are crazy. Eve shook her head and looked out the window, feeling all the tension from the trip drop away from her. Okay, she said, turning back to him. What's the dumbest thing you've ever done on skis? He looked over at her skeptically. You don't want to know. Yes, I do. Turning, she pulled her knee onto the seat between them. What's the one thing that to this minute you really cannot believe you did? His gaze squeezed into total uncertainty, and he shook his head. You're going to think I'm insane. I already think that. Come on, what is it? With one more, I really wish you would just drop this topic glance, he sighed. I skied down the entire hill with a beer in my hand. She looked at him questioningly. That's not so bad. Buck naked. Her eyes widened in shock, and she collapsed, laughing. Oh no, you're kidding, right? Like I would tell you something like that and be kidding, he said, as just under his cap flushed red. Why would you do that? He shrugged, and together they both said, They dared me to. Every time she tried to stop laughing, the giggles would hit her again, and she doubled over. He looked over at her and laughed. I can't ski Copper Mountain anymore. I wonder why. Oh, that's awful. No, they wanted me to go down a black diamond like that, but there are some things you have to draw the line about. Her hand came up to her forehead as she tried to stop the laughing. I cannot believe you would do something like that. I don't think they believed it either. They didn't dare me much after that. Can you blame them? I tried to, but the ski patrol wasn't exactly interested in my motivation. I can imagine. So that's my one dumbest thing on skis, he said. What's yours? Oh man, I don't have anything close to that. Yeah, but surely there's something you did that wasn't exactly brilliant. She ducked her head, and 2 strands of hair fell across her face as one image jumped into her head. With a push, she strung the hair behind her ear. I knocked the ski pole rack down in the rental place. How'd you manage that? Well, I didn't exactly realize how long the skis were, and the guy put them on me and left to go get the phone or something. My ear cover thing was on the chair, and I was afraid I was going to forget it, so they really shouldn't put those racks in the middle of the store. Big mess? Yeah, you could say that. Where was Dustin? There was only the smallest of pangs. I don't remember. All I remember is that was the first time of the next 100,000 that he picked me up that day. Let me tell you, those poles are a lot harder than they look. AJ laughed softly. I can see you laying in the middle of these hundreds of poles. Dustin, help! Sheepishness crept over her. Oh, yeah, and I was trying to act all cool and everything, too. We'd only gone out like a few times at that point. He must have thought, well, hello, Miss Grace. His glance sideways at her made the center of her heart do strange things. Funny, you don't look clumsy. She rolled her eyes. Oh, brother. You don't know me very well, then. Once I get it, I'm fine. Like rollerblading, that's cool. But if I've never done it before, look out. Instantly, he was interested. You rollerblade? I love it, almost as much as skiing now. So you got over the point? Heck, by the 3rd day, I could even stand up off the ski lift. Impressive. Okay, granted you were probably doing black diamonds by the 3rd day. 2nd, he corrected. She looked at him in amazement. Are you afraid of anything? Haven't found it yet, he said. Yeah, I noticed. Nothing about her thought that was frightening. Somehow it was comforting to know he wasn't afraid of the booze in the night. Does Jeff know what he's gotten himself into? AJ raised his eyebrows wickedly. I'm not telling him, are you? Hey, he deserves everything he gets if he goes skiing with you. The twists and turns through the mountain pass were enough to make her mortally queasy. Are we almost there? Eve asked as AJ took one sharp turn banked by a drop-off on one side and solid rock on the other. How am I supposed to know? Do I look like I have a map? You don't know where we're going? I didn't think to look at the map, but that's okay. All we've got to do is keep up with them and we'll be fine. Oh, yeah, all we've got to do. Does he know where we're going? I sure hope so. Eve pulled at the neck of her oversized off-white sweater. She had brought half her closet, but she wasn't sure if she would have enough clothes to survive a whole night in a lost pickup. Thinking that discussing what happened if they got separated might send her anxiety mechanism into overdrive, she searched for something else to talk about. Okay, how about this one? Pickups or cars? Define cars. Sports cars. Define pickups. She really didn't have much expertise in that area. This one. Probably sports cars. They really handle curves well. Huh, that would be nice about now. The acceleration of the pickup increased past her comfort level. You know that speed limit sign said 35. He looked down at the speedometer, which read 30. Oh, good, he said, pushing the pedal to the floor. No, no! She tapped one foot on the floor to keep her nerves inside her body. Okay, I'll shut up now. With one glance over at her, he slowed down and said, M&Ms or Crunch Bar? M&Ms. Brown or green? Brown. Isn't that funny? He asked, shifting the position of his leg. They're the very same except for the outside color. But they wouldn't be half as much fun without the colors. She took her mind and gaze off the road as they rounded another sharp corner. If you could come up with a new color for M&Ms, what would it be? Purple. Why? I don't know. I like purple, I guess. Purple? Is that your favorite color? She asked. I don't really have a favorite color. I like black and red and blue. And purple? I like whatever's clean. And if nothing's clean? He glanced over at her. Then whatever doesn't smell. Good plan. At that moment ahead of them, the Camry slowed and turned left off the highway just in front of 3 large boulders. The gravel road it took didn't look exactly inviting, but AJ turned, and they bumped their way up the first 10 yards. Did Ashley mention how far from nowhere this place was? Eve asked as the highway disappeared into the trees behind them. I don't remember anyone asking that question, AJ said. I just hope Jeff knows where he's going, or we're going to wind up in somebody's lake. There's a nice thought. The pickup was in a steady uphill climb, and Eve finally leaned back into the seat to keep her stomach with her. I sure hope Lisa's okay. That makes 2 of us. At a bend in the road, the taillights of the Camry came on for a moment, and then it veered off to the right. A little way up that road, back in the midst of the tall pine trees looming in all directions, sat a cabin. AJ waited a half-second before he turned the pickup and followed Jeff to the path on the side of the road. There was a driveway, but it was stacked 3 feet in snow and thus inaccessible. When the vehicle came to a stop, Eve took a solid breath. She reached for her door handle and stepped out into the crisp, late afternoon air. It smelled just like she remembered. Ahead of them, Jeff got out and stretched his back. That was fun, huh? He called to Eve. Fun isn't the word I would use, she said as she walked over to Lisa's door. When the door popped open, Eve offered her friend a hand up. Careful, it might be a little slick. Okay, Lisa said, pulling up, watching for ice, and looking around at her new surroundings all at the same time. Okay, now I'm glad we came. I'm hoping someone thought to bring a snow shovel, AJ said from where he had just slammed the pickup door. This isn't exactly valet parking. Gabe's notes say there's one in the garage, Jeff said, swinging out of stand-and-stretch mode into let's get serious about how we're getting inside mode. You up for a little exercise? Ready when you are, AJ replied. Jeff grabbed the key and the instructions from the dashboard of the Camry, and as the women stood at the car and watched, the men crunched their way through the snow. At places, their feet slipped through farther than they had realized, nearly pulling them all the way to the ground. Crashing into each other while trying to maintain balance, they made their way through the snow. When they finally reached the cabin steps, both of them had snow up to the knees of their pant legs. This is the right cabin, isn't it? AJ asked, looking around from his new vantage point. Let's hope so. Jeff worked the key for a second, and the door slid open. Presto! They disappeared into the cabin. How long do you think this is going to take? Lisa asked as she wrapped her arms around herself. Long enough to know we should get back in the car, Eve said. She helped Lisa back in and walked carefully around the back to the driver's door. Once inside, she waited, watching the cabin for movement. So you survived the ride? I was beginning to wonder on a couple of those turns, Lisa said. How did you guys do? Good, Eve said, thinking back to the skiing stories. Lisa looked at her but didn't ask the question in her eyes. At that moment, AJ appeared on the deck with the shovel. Ah, our white knight has arrived, Eve said with a smile. He's our white knight? Lisa asked teasingly. Oh boy, are we in trouble. If she only knew, Eve thought, watching him. If she only knew. Almost an hour of hard work later, the path to the cabin was cleared, and all 4 of them had made it inside with luggage. It's colder in here than it is outside, Eve said, shivering for emphasis. We turned up the heat, Jeff said. It'll take a while. The men transferred the luggage to the 3 bedrooms as Lisa and Eve searched through the cabinets, trying to determine what they would need when they went to the little grocery store they had passed in town what seemed like hours before. "We're going out to turn on the water," Jeff said, crossing through the living room to the bedroom AJ had disappeared into. "Okay," Lisa said. Then she looked at Eve. "I think our first problem is what to eat tonight." "That'd be a good place to start." "Is Gabe always this organized?" AJ asked in surprise. Everything, right down to the hiding place of the flashlight, was exactly where it said it would be in the notes. "Him or Ashley," Jeff said as the 2 of them walked through the musty underbelly of the house to the water valve. "Ashley," AJ said. "I don't know. You might be surprised," Jeff said. "People aren't always what they seem at first." At the valve, Jeff turned, and it took 2 good jerks to get the valve unstuck. When that was finished, he turned to AJ. "All systems go." "I guess we're going to have to drive back into town," Jeff said, clearly not excited about that idea as he stood in the kitchen minutes later. "We should have stopped on the way through," Eve said. "Yeah, but who knew we'd be stuck in the middle of nowhere?" Lisa said, and she winced and shifted position in the little stool at the bar. "I can go," AJ said, and the 3 others looked at him. "What? I've bought groceries before." "Yeah, but how are your navigational skills?" Jeff asked, not entirely teasing. AJ shrugged. "They let me drive the ambulance." "The man's got a point," Eve said. "Tell you what, we'll go in and get the stuff. You guys take it easy for a while. Lisa, you put your feet up, and Jeff, you make sure she does." "We won't be long," AJ said as he grabbed the list from the counter. Back in the pickup, Eve wondered about her sanity. The sunlight was fading behind the mountain, and the temperature had dropped since their last foray outside. "It's a pretty nice place," AJ said as he turned the pickup around on the road that was too small for the large vehicle frame. "Once it gets warm and livable," Eve said. "Wait until you get to those slopes." "That's what I keep telling myself." They bounced out to the highway in silence as Eve tried to figure out how he knew the way so easily. She was sure if it was her, they would have ended up in Arizona by the time she realized it was the wrong direction. "Scale of 1 to 10, how good of a skier are you?" AJ asked. 1 is what? "Can't get off the lifts without falling down." 10 is what? He smiled at her. "Me, of course." She shook her head incredulously. 10.5. I am better than you, but I don't do moguls, black diamonds, or ski jumps." "Bowls?" "Or bowls," she corrected herself. 10.5 on blues and greens," he shrugged. "Not bad." "I'm sure you'll be bored silly with me." He glanced over at her, and his smile lit his eyes. Not likely. It was official. Eve couldn't have made it back to the cabin if her life had depended on it. Twists and turns and curves and inclines, they were enough to make her think that she couldn't even ride the trail, much less drive it. "You okay?" AJ asked with some concern as they crossed past the 3 boulders and lurched across the potholes leading to the final turn. "We're almost there?" "Almost." Good. Pitch blackness surrounded the pickup beyond the headlights, so that all she could see was directly in front of them. "You think they're worried about us yet?" "I doubt it. Jeff, Lisa alone, cabin off in the woods. You do the math." "True," she said, although that didn't make her feel exactly comforted. He rounded the last corner, and the lights of the cabin came into view. Well, at least they left a light on. The pickup stopped behind the Camry, and he killed the engine. Eve crawled out and shivered at the onslaught of the chill, even through the parka that was now standard with her outfit. Quickly, she grabbed 2 bags and headed down the little trail. Before she even got to the steps, he was right with her. "Careful, the steps might be slick," he said, bracing his body behind hers lest she not negotiate the steps successfully. At the door, she slid it open and stepped inside, grateful for the warmth. Jeff sat on the couch reading, but he looked up at the sound. "We're home," AJ sang out. "Shh," Jeff said, standing quickly and striding over to take the bags from Eve. "Lisa's resting." "Is she okay?" Eve asked, not totally liking the tiny note of concern she heard in Jeff's voice. She's fine, just a little tired from the trip. He set the bags on the counter. So what'd you get? After the dishes were cleaned, Jeff and Lisa decided that bed sounded better than socializing, and they excused themselves and retired to the large bedroom off to one side of the cabin. Party poopers, AJ said, collapsing onto the sofa and grabbing the remote. Do you blame them? Eve asked as she sat carefully on the other side. He smiled. No. Slowly, he flipped through the channels until with only 4 flips, they were back to where they started. Ah, simplicity, he said sarcastically. On her side, Eve yawned and pulled one of the pillows from the couch so she could hold it to her chest. We've got a shoot-'em-up show, he said as he flipped again through the channels. News, another shoot-'em-up show, or... Although the next picture was dark, the sounds emanating from it clearly announced what that show was about. AJ tilted his head curiously and arched an eyebrow. This could be interesting. Give me that, Eve said in annoyance. She swiped the remote from his hand and hit the power button. How about we talk? Talk? He asked wide-eyed. About what? About you. Me? His eyebrows arched further, and then his face dropped in mischief as he ratcheted himself lower on the couch. What do you want to know? Besides skiing, what do you like to do? Play the drums. Okay, besides play the drums and ski, what do you like to do? He narrowed his gaze thoughtfully. Eat. With one swipe, she whacked him on the top of the head with a pillow. Besides that, ding-dong. Instantly, his hands went over his head as if for protection, but the attack was already over. Geez, I didn't know I was being interrogated. Wait till you see what I've got planned next, she said seriously. He looked at her with skeptical fear. I don't think I want to. You're right, you don't. Now answer the question. What do I like to do? He resumed his former position on the couch. I don't sing, and I don't dance very well, but I like the clubs as long as I'm not supposed to be impressing the girl I'm with. I like to play cards, but I lose more money than I ever win. He shrugged. I don't know. Mostly I like to hang out or do stuff I've never done before. Like what? His eyes lit from a spark inside him. Ski diving. I'd love to do that sometime. Bungee jumping. I almost got to do that once, but the guy who said he'd do it if I would backed out on me. Fly a plane, surf, go scuba diving, rock diving, swim with the dolphins, climb Mount Everest. Climb Mount Everest? Are you serious? Slowly his head rolled to the side until he was gazing at her. No, probably not, but I think it sounds like fun. She shook her head in bewilderment. You're unbelievable, you know that? Why? He asked, looking over at her. What would you like to do? Not climb Mount Everest, that's for sure. The gold of his eyes softened as his gaze burrowed through her. Well, what's your Everest? She thought for a moment, her mind sliding through doors she had thought had long since been slammed shut. Water skiing. Interest burst into his eyes. No kidding? I love to water ski. You would, she said with a slight note of fear in the back of her voice. He sat up and spun a knee around to face her. You know what's really cool? In fear, she shook her head. Wakeboarding. Oh man, that's the ultimate. What does that entail? It's like snowboarding, except you're on the water. On the water? Yeah, you've got this board and it's strapped to your feet. You jump up in the air and flip around and hopefully land upright. It's just so awesome. He spun around so that his back was on the couch again as he reveled in the memories. You'd love it. Eve's gaze dropped to the pillow in her hands. She had seen 2 opportunities to water ski pass her up. More to the point, she had forced them to pass her up as she sat in the boat saying, No, I don't want to. Truth was, she did want to, but fear of either crashing or totally humiliating herself, or both, took her desire right out of the game. It must be nice to have so much courage. His gaze chanced on her again. It's a choice, he shrugged. You make the choice, the courage will come. Softly she smiled, thinking that she wished it was so easy. Suddenly, he yawned and stretched his arms high above his head so that the arm of his basketball jersey slipped down, revealing the tanned skin stretched tightly over the solid muscle. "Man, I am beat." "Yeah, me too," she said, taking his cue. Together they stood, and he walked behind her to the little hallway leading to their rooms. As she stepped into the hallway, the light behind her snapped off, plunging the space into complete darkness. Her steps slowed lest she meet up with something she didn't know was there. At that moment, she felt the warmth of his hand find the small of her back, and her entire body sprang to attention. Waves of feelings gushed through her with that one simple touch, and she had to beat them back down. At the end of the hallway, she could just make out the tiny shaft of light from her room, and just as she reached the door, she turned to lean against the wall. "Good thing I'm not scared of the dark." "Yeah," his voice whispered through the darkness. Although he was no longer touching her, she could feel him barely inches away, and desire in a form she hadn't felt in a long time caught her breath. "Well, sleep well." "You too," he said, and she felt him move away from her. However, at his door he stopped. "And if the dark gets too scary, I'm just across the hall." "I'll remember that," she said, her voice fighting not to sound breathless. When his door closed, Eve's eyes closed with it, and she exhaled. He was AJ. AJ, not Dustin. What was she doing? She couldn't be attracted to someone like him. He was young and out to have fun. He didn't know about the world and all the heartache it could hold. It was just being that close to a man again, she rationalized as she stepped into her own room. She could have fun with him, as friends, and that was as far as she wanted this or any other relationship to ever go again. When she climbed into bed, her thoughts drifted over AJ, sitting there in his basketball jersey and reversed hat. He was such a little kid. Then her thoughts snagged on to Dustin, and clinging tightly to that image, she fell asleep. This has been White Knight, Book 2, The Courage series, written by Staci Stallings, narrated by Becky Dowdy. Copyright 2012 by Staci Stallings. Production copyright 2014 by Staci Stallings.
Never miss a second of the story. Like and subscribe to the Staci Stallings YouTube channel today.